Hello. I'm, I'm gonna just talk about what to do with her. Well, there's two ways you can take her. No matter what. You can take her into the support or DPS role. She will not manage in tank, not as well as you think she would. But Sim could easily be still DPS or support. How you can fix that? Pretty easily. If she's a support role, remove the beam. No more with no charge. This tiny bubble is perfectly fine for a primary fire. It does a decent amount of damage, so no beam if she's a support, just boom. Which doesn't seem like it does much health, but since they're so fast, it adds up quickly. And she's a support, she's not going to be doing a lot of damage comparatively. So like, what? She does what? 30 damage per single bubble? And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if these robots have 100 health and it takes 8 shots, you might have to buff the tiny bubble here for her support, for her being a support. This is her being a support role. Nothing more. This would be her primary fire. It just is as it is, with the splash damage and all. That's her support fire. That's her primary fire, right? See? That's just an annoying little fire thing. To tanks, she'd be like a fly nipping at them with that. But to all the other characters, all of them, it would hurt after a while. Her secondary fire would be this ball, at full max. Which, at max, this would be her secondary fire, which is apparently a one-shot kill. Otherwise, Jesus, it does 100 damage. But this would be her secondary fire, and it automatically would charge up and fire it without you needing to hold it down. That would be her first two changes. That means you don't have to do much work. Not much work at all. She can keep her teleporter. Oops, wrong button. She can keep her teleporter. This is fine. She can still have this. No problems whatsoever. Teleporter good, DPS or DPS or not. This is good as a support role or an offensive role. She can keep that, no problems. But this is where it's also going to change. The turrets here. The turrets will be fine as DPS, but if it was for healing purposes, I would recommend you take Baptiste's burst fire and Soldier's like bionic heal thing where she tosses it out, sticks, does a quick burst fire of healing and then immediately pops. Like, do that, it heals them and then pop, it goes away immediately after the quick burst of healing. She can keep all three as they are. No, nothing changed there other than they just go kapoof with a big heal. And then just pop away. And then her ult though has to change. No matter what you work on. The support one ult would still be this, where she puts up a giant barrier, but you make it into a cylinder the size of Mambani Tower. Literally, you take Mambani's tower and her ult and combine the two, where she just makes a cylinder straight up and down of the barrier for support role. If that makes any sense. That would be her support. She puts up a giant cylinder barrier that goes straight up and down instead of across the map. It works the same way, it's just round. It goes around them. It's good size, has 3,000 health maybe. No biggie. Because she'll still be able to go tiny bubbles like crazy. See, does a good amount of damage, and then, the tiny levels of primary fire. This is support. Then she just tosses that out. Quick burst of healing. Instead of the laser. But DPS can keep the laser. Can keep the... This stays no matter what. It's fine. She would have her laser beam like it is anyways if she stayed at DPS. But her ult has to change no matter what. Now as for her DPS role version of the DPS version of her ult would be tossing a Hammond-sized ball outward, forward, and if it collides with anything, it explodes like a diva bomb. But the bomb is only half the size of a diva's explosion, half the size, and the center is 300 damage. Halfway from the center is 200. Halfway from the center, that 200, half out to the edge is 100 damage.
Defenses in place.
Damn, that range is ridiculous.
Order overcomes chaos. Turret online.
Let me just get rid of these. So, if you want her to be a support, these turrets turn into just a quick thing that you completely just toss out. You toss it out. It sticks to the surface, completely just goes a quick poof of like 100 health, like Soldier's Bionic Field, but with Baptiste's quick burst, just poof, instant 100 of health. You can toss out 3, so she can do a grand total of 300, and as it waits to cool down to get her turrets back, then you can go like 1, 2, that poof poof, instant 200 health, and then again 300 health. That's her healing factor. Then her ult in support would be a giant cylinder. It's like the Mabani map with the giant cylinder in the koi pond. I think it's the Mabani map. Where that big tower stands in that giant koi pond circle. It's just a tower of that. Of her light barrier going around. Just a cylinder of it. 300 health on it. 3,000 health on it, sorry. 3,000 health on it. And it's just a giant cylinder. It's stationary where she was, goes around her from her as a center point. Boom, she's done. She's support. You just have to remove the laser as a support. She don't need it. She got her little bubbles, which, do a lot of damage. And then her secondary fire is just a big bubble that's slower than the smaller ones, which are faster. The big one's a little OP. They might have to nerf the big one. But that would be her support, where her damage version would be a sort of a Hammond-shaped round sphere tossed out forward from where she's looking, and then explodes on an impact. And if it hits if people are wondering, what if it's blocked by a barrier, like Reinhardt's shield or the monkey's barrier, or anyone who throws out a barrier, it immediately destroys the barrier upon impact, exploding right then and there, outward. And the side effect of that is, if it blows up and destroys a shield, the character whose shield was blown up now has to wait an extra 3 seconds for it. It has a 3-second delay on it before it starts recharging itself, giving time for the opponent to run in, knowing that they are completely have no barrier, and it's just time to come in, dive, and start firing with a 3-second delay. But if you're caught outward during the explosion and you still get hit by that area effect, you still take damage. But you can stop it from exploding too early. And it doesn't go through barriers, though. If Reinhardt blocks it, he'll be fine, but if anyone gets caught outside of his barrier in the radius, it does damage. like the Diva Bomb, but only half the size of the Diva Bomb and the shape of Hammond's ball outward in a big sphere of light. So they could just take her, charge ball thing like this and just make a really big version the size of Hammond that tosses outward and causes a giant explosion. And she can keep her little turrets, and she keeps her little teleporter, and you can still play around with that all you want. Like, no biggie. And it works just fine, like always. Nothing changes, really. Support loses this primary fire, and its ultimate turns into a big round cylinder instead, the shape of a giant tower, which is easy. It added into her barrier being just that round cylinder. Add that in there, just make it round cylinder, shaped like this tower, boom. She's still a builder. The only thing different is her primary fire is these little bubbles, and her things now go hit the wall, burst, heal, and then disappear. And her portals can be made for plays with the support role, and her big bubble will immediately charge as her secondary fire and fire. You don't have to hold down the trigger, it just does it.
You lack imagination.
And for the damage version, she keeps pretty much everything except for her ultimate changes into a giant sphere ball that gets tossed outward and upon impact explodes. Also, the damage version can immediately explode it if they want to when they're ready, so she can toss it out and wait. It has a set distance it'll go before it explodes, or they can click the ult again to cause it to explode early. And not just go straight, they can toss it up at an angle too to go above a barrier if they want it to. Like how Diva can launch her mech forward at those angles and toss it up into the air, she can do the same with hers. Pretty much it's the Diva Bomb in a Hammond shape that goes out forward or up at an angle that she detonates on her own, or lets it go into max distance and explodes, but it's only half the size and half the damage of a Diva Bomb. Pretty much. And that's her damage. Where her ult is now different and more of a damage type, or she could be back into support, toss, burst heal, explodes immediately for the turret. You don't even have to change anything visually. It can just look like that and do a quick poof and then destroy itself. The only thing that would change that you had to do work on is the ultimates. You would have to change her ultimate, and support loses the beam, gains a bubble primary instead, or the prime fire or whatever the hell this is becomes a primary fire. Secondary fire is the one that just charges up and fires itself after a full charge.
Everything in its place.
And then you can alter the damage as needed for her being a support role versus her being a damage role, and tweak it however you decide. That's about it. That's how you can fix Symmetra to be a support role or a damage role more efficiently, where people have a hard time with her. She's not that damn difficult. Hell, you can. This is a very few changes that take very little effort, and probably a good programmer can knock it out in a weekend. If they're okay, all I have to do is change some of the functions of these, remove something, change the shape of something, where the damage roll would have to have some reworking, and the support role will have very little reworking other than her ult being shaped into a tower and a giant cylinder instead of a giant wall. How they can keep the 5,000 health that they want on it. The turrets can look exactly the same. You don't have to change anything visually. Just hits, poof, and then blows up. Poof, healing, blows up. Gotta wait for it to cool down before you get another one. You can have up to 3, like Brigitte. And then Symmetra is your new support role. I don't think DPS will really miss her too much, since they don't seem to like her, but support might like having the new character with her little bubble gun, being a support bubbles like crazy. Because the beam is completely fucking stupid. This is useless other than for damaging barriers and getting up close if you manage to get it charged. Other than that, it's completely shit. Especially now with barriers being like nearly gone. If you can get this fat beam going, it's useful. But other than that, it's not. You can keep that on damage, but support you can just remove it. No more needing to worry about that hassle. And then she'd be just a support character. And you just have to take off 25 of her health right down there. Just remove 25 of her health. And she'll have the 200 health as all the other supports. And then she'll be a lot better off.
Everything in
The damage one, gotta make her a new ultimate. Instead of a barrier ultimate, she builds a giant sphere of destruction, tosses it forward. She also, nothing from light destroyed by light, sort of quote or something like that. And you got it. Boom. Symmetra completely altered for Overwatch 2, but functioning either as a support, stays a builder, not much changes off her, they don't have to rework much, it's just literally toss out poof healing or toss out stays as turret and does laser stuff for DPS. That's it. No matter how you look at it though, Portal stays Portal. Like, you keep your teleporter as your teleporter. This just stays the way it is. Nothing more. Just, yeah, that exists. That's just something she can do. Support or DPS, it's a flanking maneuver that she can use to escape quickly or get into get her team in there. Portal is a very heavy support. This is definitely a support thing or a DPS's flanking tool. The Portal's just good no matter what. It's just good to keep around. Her ult being just a giant cylinder that goes around in a circle, like a giant circle the size of that tower in the koi pond in Mabani. Just goes around you instead. Does the same thing, you just make it a cylinder that goes straight up and down instead of across the whole map. So can self-detonate on when they want, or reaches a certain distance, or impacts a wall or something. Because we know Hammond's ball can fit in any door in Overwatch. So it's fine at that size. You toss it in, explodes like a diva bomb with the radius, with a half of the radius of a diva bomb, with the damage going from the center outward, getting weaker. Then if they want to rework her ult, she's still a builder. She builds a giant bomb and tosses it, or builds a giant tower to defend for support, or damage. Your choice of poison. DPS keeps the beam and the bubble. The bubble's a secondary. So no one ever uses the tiny bubbles. But if the tiny bubbles were the primary fire instead of the laser, for support, it'll be fine with a secondary just being the charge bubble automatically charging itself and then firing so you don't have to hold it down. And not much changes from her and she's fixed. Nothing else. Many people might not agree with that, but it is an easy fix that they can do it in a weekend with the right kind of crew. They can do it. Knock it out, get her in beta and see how that works as a support role, or leave her as a DPS and just change her ult.
My teleporter is online.
And that's about it. Not much changes. So the support's an easy fix. Her teleporter stays. Her little these
Turret
stay,
in
but their
place.
function changes from damage to a quick burst health, and then destroys itself. Sort of like how Brigitte tosses out that little heal things to a target. She tosses it out, it tosses it out to the floor or the wall, and it goes kapoof, and they all gain 100 health in the vicinity, and then it destroys itself. And then she can do it 3 times, so she can heal a total of 300 health. And then she has to wait for them to charge again, like Brigitte. It's sort of her new healing would be the same thing. No alteration really required, other than it goes Baptiste Burst for 100 health each, and gets thrown out like her turret, and has 3 of them like Brigitte. Not very hard. And that's an easy fix, and I don't think that Overwatch will ever see this video or hear about these thoughts, but hey, I just couldn't get to bed without, getting those thoughts out, because Beam, fucking useless if you're a support. These bubbles are way better anyways. And they might have to alter the damage on that if she's a support, where DPS can just keep her laser beam for close range combat, and her bubbles for long range, as is. Just depends on how much work they want to do. In other words, her ult needs some work. Her ult's great for defensive purposes and a support role, but for a straight up DPS, you have to rework it into something else. So yeah, that's it. I hope people don't mind this idea. If someone can get it to Overwatch, give them some thought on it. They might take it if they want to turn her into a support, because they don't have a lot of support roles. That'd be the best way to make her into a support. But if they want to keep her DPS, they have to rework her ult into something more destructive.
Know your place.
And that's about it. I heard they took away her ability to regain ammo from the beam hitting a barrier, but it's Overwatch 2, which was gonna have shit little to no barrier, so yeah, if it doesn't give you ammo for hitting a barrier, then who cares? They got Junkrat for that. They got tons of characters for that completely counter barriers. Junkrat's a big one for that. And besides, you can do a lot of damage doing this to a barrier, actually. This kind of chip damage to a barrier fucking will destroy a barrier so fast if you get the right character build up on your team. Could rip a barrier, Reinhardt's barrier off his arm faster than Winston can rip a banana peel off a banana if he was really hungry. But other than that, yep, that's my thoughts on how they could fix Symmetra. Just primary fire, secondary fire for the support, and change the ult no matter what. Because look how much damage I did. Let me just move him out of the way.
This is the order of things.
You have your charge shot, which would be your secondary support. That did more than half damage, or you can have your primary fire be this. It does almost about the same amount of damage. See? It almost does about the same. So, yeah. Not hard to fix her. She's actually pretty easy to fix. Just gotta think outside the box. If she's a builder, everything she has to do must be something that is created out of light, right? Her attacks are created out of light, her ults created out of light, her barriers created out of light, her teleporters created out of light with slight metal. Her little turret things are created out of light, which you can make it into a support for a quick burst heal pop, or keep them as turrets that just annoy people. because the Overwatch 2 don't want too much crowd control, so her slowdown's gone, so her lasers would just be turret lasers. Nothing more to it.
Sentry online.
Double
Perception is your weakness.
As it is, that's fine, I guess. I can't stand her myself, because her turrets are a pain in the ass. Because I'm always playing support and no one wants to take care of the turrets.
Prakash se jivan mein.
Well,
Why do you struggle against your fate? My teleporter is online.
that's precarious.
Defenses in place.
But yeah, that's my thoughts and all that. I highly doubt that they're ever gonna hear these thoughts.
Teleporter
But
online.
hey,
I have
they're just a
listened to far.
quick way to fix Symmetra from a DPS to a healer, or how to fix her as a DPS to just be a straight up DPS, where you have to either rework her ults no matter what, it seems. Her ults being a giant cylinder tower would work for support, because the way it is, a wall who supports their team by defending them. She'll still be a defensive, but she'll be a defensive support. Or she could be a DPS that sends a giant